Hey everybody, I hope you're having a super day. Welcome to Learn How to Prevent Stress Eating. If we have not met before, my name is Dave Stevens with Stevens Group Training. And I absolutely love supporting people who are motivated to improve their health. I'm excited to help you remove the discomfort and anxiety caused by stress eating from your life, so that you can focus on experiencing and achieving all of your goals and aspirations. On the next slide, I have prepared a list of links that were used to assemble this webinar for you. As you can see, it's quite a substantial list. Now, while we're all somewhat familiar with the nagging voice of guilt in our heads that accompanies an excessive or indulgent meal, it's another thing entirely to heed that voice, to hear that voice and listen to it, so to heed that voice and stop while our body is at a comfortable, satiated level. In other words, when you are satisfied. Stress eating can be defined, in other words, as emotional eating, or eating to compensate for or as an alternative to dealing with emotions. 27% of adults admit to turning to food to deal with stress, while 34% of these admit it to be a habit. Why do we do it? Well, it's easy to blame external factors. The food itself, the party who provided it, the place in which it was consumed, etc., etc. The real underlying issue with stress eating lies in lack of awareness of our bodies, our emotions, and our ability to deal with them. The majority of the time, stress eating is done at times when the body does not need food. As the messages between mind and body get confused, and hunger is not the main thing waiting to be satisfied. Harvard Health has issued a fascinating article which details some of the reasons that stress causes overeating in adult Americans. You can read more about that at the link. As the article I've linked already outlines, in the short term, stress can actually prevent hunger cues. The hypothalamus in the brain produces hormones which suppress the appetite initially, but if the stress continues, the opposite occurs. Cortisol is released at higher levels, which increases appetite and causes those encompassed in their stressful episode to block out any other emotions and sometimes even logical thought. And this will cue an episode of stress eating. The longer the stressful period continues, the more emotional eating a person will do. This inevitably leads to weight gain, further hormone imbalances, and an increased risk of more serious diseases down the line, such as diabetes and cardiovascular problems. It's a vicious spiral that, once entered into, can be very difficult to escape. But fortunately, there are ways to escape periods of stress and emotional eating. The first step, which you are all doing by attending this event today, is to acknowledge that it has become an issue. This is often where most people fall down, as their eating habits may fluctuate from periods of having a non existent appetite and mild stress to intense, stressful, and emotional eating periods. The following quiz is a great way to assess your eating habits and why you act in certain ways around food when you do. It's slightly long, so feel free to wait until after the class to take it, but be sure to save this link either way. Cortisol is too frequently associated with the fight or flight reflex that our bodies have in response to external threats or stressors. When we experience periods of extreme hunger and intense stress, this triggers the same response from our cortisol levels. Both of these experiences cause the body to respond similarly, and as such, it's easy to see how the boundaries between one and the other get confused. Similarly, we've grown up getting a stable release of neurotransmitters to the positive areas of the brain whenever hunger cravings are satisfied in a balanced way, leading to these increased correlations and associations between food and feelings. Recognizing that these thought patterns have formed surrounding the way we view food, we need to start asking ourselves questions like, are we eating purely to feel that rush of contentment, or because our bodies actually need it? This introspection is vital if you are to gain any kind of understanding of your eating habits. Take time to consider these questions the next time you feel like overeating. If you're already aware of when you most struggle to control your eating, I'd love to hear about it below. What triggers you to stress eat? Getting to know your stressors, or the things that cause you stress. I know it's not the most comfortable experience to look through your discomfort head on, but it's the only way to make progress against the damaging habits of stress eating truly. Even just taking the time to be honest with yourself and write down when you feel overwhelmed by thoughts of overeating, or when you automatically turn to food for comfort, can be a great way to begin. Once you've identified the root causes, you can set to work in minimizing the risks that they will happen to you again. For instance, if you know you eat when you're lonely, plan to call a friend or write in your journal instead. The more frequently you divert your energy to these alternative outlets for your energy and the thoughts, the easier it will become to ignore cravings to overindulge. It can also help to always carry food with you so that you never feel deprived. Emotional eating can be your body's reaction to feeling deprived in either a physical or mental form. So create new ways to nourish yourself. Stock your fridge with delicious, healthy foods, pack your calendar with exciting things to do, and be disciplined about setting aside time for yourself to relax. Check out the link below for some alternative ways to distract yourself from stress eating. While it's easy to recommend a stress eater to attend a yoga class or to start meditating, it takes a little bit more understanding of these activities to truly have the desired effect. Mindful eating is a term that has been coined by experts to help those who struggle with emotional eating to remain present and aware of the entire duration of a meal. It sounds like a simple task, but consciously taking and savoring bites of food for every meal is a difficult concept, even for those who aren't struggling to overcome emotional eating habits. Mindful eating consists of several easy to follow steps before, during, and after each meal. Before eating, assess your hunger truthfully. Take time to note your level of hunger before ingesting anything. And also note what kinds of foods would most successfully help fuel your body for the current situation or tasks that you're facing. During your meal, chew slowly, taking breaks, and try to taste every little flavor. Many professionals recommend taking a break between 5 to 10 minutes in the middle of your meal. After you've finished eating, try to view the meal you've just ingested as fuel to help you achieve whatever tasks, work, or activities you're planning to undertake. Mindfully assess how you feel physically. Note if the food was too heavy, too light, too much, too little, or just enough. Use this information to move forward, not allowing regret to the surface. If the meal wasn't exactly to your satisfaction, use this to help you in planning subsequent meals. More helpful mindful eating tips are at the link. It's not rare to hear those who complain of mental health difficulties mention diet and a difficult relationship with food and stress eating as part of the symptoms of their illness they experience. Recent studies have shown that an overwhelming amount of our positive hormones and enzymes are secreted in the gut. And this means that ensuring digestion is at an optimum level, and it should be a priority for those seeking to balance out hormonal and emotional functioning. For stress eaters, this could be an interesting place to start considering their bad habits. The emotions causing the stress eating might initiate with complex hormonal imbalances. And so regulating digestion should become a priority to lower the chances and severity of these imbalances and slowly returning a certain amount of control to them in regards to their emotional eating habits. If the emotions aren't so strong and extreme, chances are the period of stress eating won't be either. Gut bacteria directly affects the brain and the hormones. And it's only in recent years that studies like the one linked below have shown just how strong that effect can be. combating your stress eating can be extremely difficult. One way to face up to the reality of what you're consuming is to make a pact with yourself to write down every piece of food that passes your lips in a food diary. For people used to ignoring ingesting unhealthy amounts of food in a single sitting, this can be a real eye opener. Take note of when you eat, what you eat, and how you feel before, during, and after you eat it. After just a few days of this, you might begin to notice some patterns in your eating habits, whether positive or negative. And it's bound to make you see some sort of consistency or inconsistency in the way you eat. There are now numerous apps available for your iPhone and Android phone which help you to keep track of your food intake and exercise and have easy access to refer to it. If you feel like writing down your intake and acknowledging the emotions which surround each meal, however, I encourage keeping a food journal as opposed to just a diary. On the next page, I've included some links for a food diary app and also some that are useful info on creating and maintaining food diaries and also food journaling. The frustrating thing about emotional eating is that even good intentions of cooking yourself a healthy meal can sometimes lead to a binge or period of emotional, unconscious eating everything that you've so carefully prepared. For those who struggle with a little thing called portion control, a great tip to avoid accidentally overeating that healthy meal you spent hours preparing is to enlist the help of some trusty Tupperware boxes. Planning your meal ahead of schedule and pre-preparing some packed meals for when you know you're going to have a busy week at work can save you hours of stressing and sweating over the cooker, and also hours of stressing and digesting a binge of stress eating. Preparing and portioning your food like this at a time when you are not hungry to avoid the temptation to eat your prepacked meals in one go or one sitting is best. For example, if you're starving for dinner and decide to cook a week's worth of lasagna, chances are you'll end up eating more than one portion. This is what it means to mindfully cook, mindfully eat, and mindfully prepare your meals. The links on this page will provide you with a little more information about the benefits that food prepping can have on your food intake and also recommendations on the best way to plan, purchase, and prepare your foods. Just one example of how I've implemented this portion control or prepackaging foods is I would make a meatloaf or two, because we all know all the prep work that goes into making meatloaf. And when the meatloaf is done, I normally would cut off the ends of the meatloaf and have those for the meal that day. The rest of the meatloaf or meatloafs I would slice up into fairly thick slices, 3/4 to 1 inch thick, and individually wrap and package those either in Tupperware or freezer Ziploc bags and pop them in the freezer. Then when I'm preparing a meal in the future, I can pull out one of those packages, just one, and that's the protein for my meal. A little microwave duty, and I'm ready to go. If you feel that you've been measuring, analyzing, and attempting to change your eating habits to no avail, then it might be that you're simply not taking everything in your life into account as you attempt to change how you eat. As stress eating is an emotionally charged habit, simply changing what you eat might not get to the bottom of the issue. You may also need to look at other external factors, such as the company you keep, environmental dimensions, and emotional and hormonal factors too. This also includes your physical and mental activity. To successfully reassess your eating patterns, you must reassess every aspect of your lifestyle. It makes so much sense, and yet it's so often overlooked that to have a healthy relationship with food requires you to have a healthy relationship with all other aspects of your life as well. Livestrong.com is a great website which covers all aspects of achieving a healthy, balanced lifestyle, with articles relating to everything from food, nutrition, mental and physical fitness, and it's available for you to reassess how these areas of your life fit together. While stress eating is not a recognized eating disorder, it can be a significant contributing factor to the symptoms of almost all of them. EDNOS stands for eating disorder not otherwise specified, and is a term used to denote the varying intensities and scope of those suffering from unhealthy eating habits that don't quite meet the exact criteria for either anorexia nervosa, bulimia, or a binge eating disorder. The ironic thing is that as disordered eating patterns can cause your stress and anxiety levels to rise, becoming even more of a significant contributing factor to any existing issues with food. For example, if becoming stressed in a situation surrounding food causes you to lose control of your eating entirely and enter into a downward spiral of negative food associations, the stress eating can be seen as a trigger for worsening eating habits and spiraling negative thoughts of self-worth. It's a precariously blurred line that exists between the labels of stress eating and eating disorder, and so it's advisable to seek psychological help if you feel you might be leaning towards the latter. The emotional eating test I linked earlier is a good way to assess your relationship with food and evaluate the steps necessary for you to take to overcome any issues. I've linked it again on this slide, as well as another link with information on EDNOS. A huge portion of eating and food-related disorders come about as a direct result of negative body image and inaccurate perceptions of ourselves. The role that body image plays in beating stress and emotional eating is not immediately obvious. And yet, as we delve deeper and start to understand more about the mind body connection, we can see how stressors in the physical body directly correlate to stressors in the mind. While overeating inevitably plays havoc on our digestion and internal organs, increasing the risk of contracting various diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular difficulties, it also places a huge amount of stress on our minds. As we've already discussed, the hormones and enzymes involved in creating the sensation of stress are produced in the brain and can be released to the body in response to external triggers or stressors. When these triggers occur, our actions respond directly to the particular emotions of sadness, guilt, stress, or self-hate associated with them. And emotional eating becomes a crutch on which we attempt to redirect the attention away from the uncomfortable thoughts or stressors. More on the mind-body connection of emotional eating can be found at this link. Exercise should never be used to counteract an episode of stress eating, but it can significantly help with reducing the urges to binge and lose control of food. When we exercise, we feel good, stronger, and are full of positive endorphins that shift energy around the body instead of leaving them stuck in one place or another. As with the other lifestyle factors which combine to make a balanced, healthy diet more achievable, exercise should ideally be engaged within moderation and as a complement to a balanced lifestyle. Instead of using exercise to run off excess calories from a period of stress eating, for example, try to distract yourself from stress eating in the first place by engaging in some light form of exercise instead. If the urge to stress eat comes upon you at a time when your body is not hungry, and you've taken a moment to recognize this, the next step is to engage your mind and body with another activity in distracting you from these urges. It's about actively working against the observations you make when you keep your food diary, not merely noting them and doing nothing. Feeling safe, strong, and capable comes as a result of regular exercise, and these all happen to be emotions which those who stress eat regularly are lacking in. Stress eating can be viewed as a weakness and as a result of being incapable or unsafe in whatever conflicted emotions the person is dealing with at the time. In this way, exercise can prove to be highly beneficial to those hoping to strengthen against the temptation of stress eating mentally. Here is a really interesting piece on the best and worst kinds of physical exercise for emotional eaters. We have been conditioned externally by a vast, ever-growing, and ever-hungry giant that has a huge and relentless impact on all of our senses, not just hunger, and it's the media. Many food companies, especially mass-produced fast food companies, use the media as a way to make us believe that their particular kind of food and lifestyle will make us happy. Up until recent years, there was little to no emphasis placed on understanding the link between our food and our happiness. It just assumed that bright colors and catchy ad campaigns would satisfy our need to fit in and eat to follow the trend. In terms of how this external presentation affects our mental health, however, the media has a direct impact on how we view our eating habits and, more importantly, how we view our bodies. Think about it. If we're being told that eating a Big Mac or a Happy Meal will quite literally make us happy, then surely we're going to believe it and buy as many as often as we can. Not only is this mass-produced and processed food unhealthy for our bodies, but it's being presented to us in a way that is mentally unhealthy too. Add to this equation the frequency of the mixed messages coming from every angle, and it's no wonder we lose touch with our senses, forgetting to listen to and satisfy our body's natural needs and hunger cues. While we know it's more likely we will consume more food if our attention is diverted elsewhere, such as TV, social media, etc., it's interesting to consider if it is to blame for our emotional eating too. The link below discusses this topic. Getting to know your triggers is key if you are ever to overcome or at least manage your emotional eating. There are no specific outlines as to what an individual's triggers can be, as everyone experiences different things. So it can often also be hard to gauge when or how a stress eater will be triggered to binge. For this reason, I'd recommend taking time while you try to gain control of your eating habits to focus solely on you. No matter how tempting it might be to surround yourself with people all the time to hide your eating issue, or the opposite, complete isolation, the solution to stress eating will not be found in either extreme. It's by becoming comfortable eating when you need to, as much as you need to, and stopping at that, and slowly beginning to trust yourself around food again. Trusting your body and the signals it's giving, and listening for once, instead of numbing pain or other complicated emotions with food. And I will tell you this, as you encounter success in making these changes, and I'm not suggesting that you make large changes, but just tiny steps. But as you encounter these changes, success in making these changes, enjoy the feelings of success. Feel good about the changes that you're making. This will reinforce your actions and will make it easier to make the next little step and the one after that. Dwell on your successes. The link below shows more on triggers. In the end, avoiding stress eating and learning to nourish yourself with balanced, satisfying meals is easier said than done, and you may still slip up from time to time. Busy schedules and unpredictable meal plans happen. But the critical thing to be aware of is that this is perfectly natural. Not everyone eats 100% healthy 100% of the time. By providing your body with balanced, regular, portion controlled meals, you'll begin to gain control of your eating patterns and, more importantly, to recognize when you have thoughts or emotions that would previously have resulted in a stress eating session. The battle against any food related issues is not one that can be fought once and never again. Instead, it's a series of decisions made over and over again, meal after meal, and hunger cue after hunger cue. Maintaining awareness surrounding your tendencies and habits as you continue to engage with your food is the most mindful way to achieve balance in your eating habits. This can be particularly difficult surrounding elements, environments, or people in your life that may previously have contributed to the stress eating triggers. So it's vital that you acknowledge these for what they are and take steps to reduce or remove them. What triggers or stressors in your life can you start to remove today? Taking the reins regarding stress eating is doing more than just ensuring your continued physical health. It's taking control of your mental health too. When you start to consider the connection between the thoughts you're having, such as anxiety, stress, sadness, and how these thoughts are affecting your body with discomfort, indigestion, and stomach issues, stress eating can seem like a vast and all encompassing issue. But just as you can change your mind one thought at a time, you can change the way you relate to food one bite at a time. Through mindful eating, journaling, food prepping, speaking openly about your issues, and acknowledging triggers for what they are, you can and will see an improvement. Striving for balance and not perfection is some of the best advice I've ever received. And being aware that recovery is not linear is also a humbling realization. Allow yourself to struggle and find it difficult at first. Just be aware that it does get easier. Try to forget all previous periods of stress eating and start fresh, beginning with your next meal. This topic can be sensitive to people, so I want to check in with how you're feeling about everything we've discussed today. Are you overwhelmed? Maybe inspired? Or how about ready to tackle this once and for all? I'd love to know if there's anything you found of particular interest or help. While it might seem like a distant and unachievable goal right now for you to overcome this, I promise you it's doable. I promise you, you can do it. with a little bit of determination and, of course, support, I believe you can change the way you think about food for good. I am here to support you. So if there's anything I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out to me at the email address on this slide. I have been a type 1 diabetic for over 35 years. So I've had to watch how I eat, and I've had to watch my stress, and I've had to watch how those two go together. And I won't say that I'm 100% perfect, but I've been relatively successful doing so. So if I can help you in any way at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thanks.